Hello, first, I just want to thank anyone who can give me advice on this, as I don't really have anyone to open up to, as I've always preferred to keep my relationship problems private. I'm embarrassed, to be honest, so this account is a throwaway. I have been married to my husband for almost 10 years now, and on the surface, it seems perfect. Around our family and friends, we are a loving and successful couple, and I've been told a few times that my relationship is something to be admired. My husband and I do very well for a living, and we make the same amount of money, but I work overtime, 12-hour shifts, 5 days a week, and he is successful enough in his career that he is able to work part-time, 12-hour shifts, 2 days a week. The reason why I mention our work hours is because when I'm off from work, I'm exhausted and I'm too tired to do everything at home by myself. And he doesn't seem to care at all. He is constantly on his computer playing video games, and often, I have to be upset before he helps with anything. I don't expect him to do the majority at home. And believe me, I try so hard to be reasonable. For example, months ago, I sat down with him and told him if he could help with the groceries and cooking, I'd take care of laundry and cleaning, and this worked for a few weeks. Then, the house was empty from any food or groceries, and when confronted, I was met with, if you need anything, just have it delivered. Another example would be, there are times when I would ask him for help folding laundry, and instead of receiving help, I would be told, well, don't do it if it's too much for you. If I didn't, then who would? Because although he makes those comments, he doesn't. Besides this, the biggest issue in our relationship that has taken a toll on me is that he is constantly ignoring me, and he just seems dismissive in whatever I say or ask, that I have to do it repeatedly, to the point that he gets irritated and says that I'm micromanaging him. But from my point of view, for example, I've asked him to pick up dog food repeatedly for the past 4 days because we were almost out and I've been working, and now I just got home from a late night shift and all the stores are closed and we have no dog food. I do still love him, but I don't feel like I can talk to him. And even though he always acts so disinterested in whatever I tell him, I still get excited to come home and tell him about my day. For example, the other day, I had something unusual happen at work and I was so enthusiastic telling him about it, but his reaction was a non-reaction, and he didn't even say anything, and just unpauses his video game because I'm finally done talking, and continues with his day. I've considered that maybe he doesn't love me anymore, and I've tried to sit down and talk to him several times, but he says he does and shuts down when I try to ask him about how he feels. And even though my heart hurts at the thought, I've asked him if he doesn't want to be with me anymore and wants to separate, but he says he does and again shuts down. At present, I've locked myself in the guest bedroom because the little things have added up. And now it seems like I'm crying over dog food, and I can hear him moving around in the kitchen, probably cooking and cleaning. His way of apologizing. In the past, I would have been swept off my feet and forgiven him instantly. But at the moment, I'm just tired of the cycle. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Maybe he is experiencing communication problems. All of this can involve many details. Are you a perfectionist who requires things to be done exactly and perfectly as you do? If so, stop doing that yesterday and lower your expectations. It takes time, years, for him to do things as you do, to be as organized as you are. Are you someone who explains how to do things as if talking to a 5-year-old boy? Also, don't do this. Just guide him on what needs to be done, the goal, and once it's accomplished, provide positive feedback and suggest improvements. Leave post-its about what needs to be purchased, but don't isolate yourself, or the situation will worsen. Keep pushing forward, but slowly. Things will change around the age of 40. Consider this. Is he cheating on you? Is he spending money on drugs or games? If not, he loves you. He may just be dealing with communication problems, ego issues, etc. Most importantly, make a point to spend 2 weekends per month at a hotel, just the two of you. Do nothing in between except visiting a casino or a movie theater. Given the current context, it might feel strange at first, but it will help rebuild trust each weekend. Lower your expectations and try to raise his standard plus 1% monthly. Wishing you all the best. Comment 2. I actually don't mind that he plays video games. I met him that way, and it's his outlet. But I just wish he'd be more responsible in terms of our home life and communicate with me. To be honest, in terms of separation, I don't know what he wants, but I'm leaving it to him. I'm still at the point where I want to work on our relationship because, despite the problems, we've been through a lot together and I can't easily give up on something we've built for years. I don't know if he's going through anything or if it's just because he doesn't feel anything for me anymore. And if it's true that he is using his computer as an outlet to escape me, then I can only hope that he'd let me know and leave me on those terms. Also, if it's not me and it's something else that is causing him to be distant, I don't want to leave and not be there for him. Once upon a time, he was there for me when I felt as if I was at my worst, and I want to be there for him too. Now for the update. Hello, first, I just want to thank anyone who can give me advice on this, as I don't really have anyone to open up to, as I've always preferred to keep my relationship problems private. I'm embarrassed, to be honest, so this account is a throwaway. So, it's been 2 weeks since I locked myself in the guest bedroom, and you won't believe what's happened. I thought things couldn't get worse, but they did. My husband, the one I've been with for nearly a decade, betrayed me in a way I never saw coming. Turns out, he's been funneling money from our joint savings into a secret account. I found out when I was doing our taxes and noticed discrepancies that didn't add up. When I confronted him, he tried to lie his way out of it, but the evidence was clear as day. I was floored. All those times he was on his computer, I thought he was just playing video games. But he was managing this other life I knew nothing about. And the worst part? He was planning to leave me high and dry. I guess the signs were there, but I was too busy working and trying to keep our life together to see them. I took action immediately. I cut off his access to our finances and contacted a lawyer. I couldn't believe the man I loved, the man I shared a bed with, could do this to me. It was like a soap opera, but this was my life. The aftermath was messy. Friends and family were shocked, and I was embarrassed. I had to explain why I was suddenly selling the house and why he wasn't around anymore. But life has a funny way of throwing you a curveball when you least expect it. Just when I thought I was going to have to face this all alone, an old friend from work reached out. She'd been through a similar situation and offered to help me navigate the legal mess. We spent long nights going over paperwork and planning my next steps. Then, another surprise dropped. My husband had been seeing someone else. I found out through a mutual friend who thought I already knew. It was like a punch to the gut. All those late nights when he said he was working, he was with her. I felt like a fool. I was angry, hurt, and felt betrayed on so many levels. But I didn't let it break me. I focused on the divorce proceedings and made sure I was protected. I sold the house, split the assets, and started fresh. It was hard, but I had support from friends and family who were just as blindsided as I was. Now I'm in a new place, smaller but mine. I've had to adjust to living on my own, but there's a sense of peace here that I haven't felt in years. I'm starting to pick up the pieces of my life, and while it's not easy, I'm doing it. I've learned that sometimes the person you trust the most can be the one to hurt you the deepest. But it doesn't mean you can't move on and rebuild. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I'm hopeful. I'm taking things one day at a time and learning to trust again, slowly. It's a process, but I'm getting there. And for anyone out there going through something similar, know that you're not alone, and it does get better. Thank you for reading. My boyfriend plays with my heart for over a year and lies about his ex. So I expose his games and make him wish he treated me better. My boyfriend, 20-year-old male, and I, 20-year-old female, have been together for over a year. However, things have been tough for us lately. We've been having intense fights, and he keeps saying things like, "I'm sick of this, I can't do this anymore. I'm no longer happy, and I want to break up." Then, the next day he tells me he didn't mean any of it. Just yesterday, I was expressing my feelings of distance from him, the lack of reassurance and attention. He got mad and said, "You ask for too much. I can't give you what you want because I'm going through a tough time. Our relationship is ruining me and is bad for me, and you're holding me back from living my life." Note, I never told him there was something he couldn't do, and I'm not the jealous type, but he is. We slept on it. Today, I woke up to texts from him saying he loved me and didn't want to lose me. Later in the day, we went on an amazing date. He apologized for continuously hurting me and for what he said. He told me that he says those things because he gets scared of how much he loves me and fear losing me. He believes he is bad for me and that I deserve better. He says I'm the best thing that ever happened to him and that I'm good to him. He asked me to stay with him and not to leave him. Then, a few hours later on the same day, he suddenly started acting cold and saying the same things he always says. I genuinely have no idea what is going on with him. He's not okay. He's not in the right mental state, and I'm worried about him. He never explains why he feels this way. He just says he doesn't know why. He told me he feels like our relationship will never be fixed, and breaking up is the only solution. Then, when he dropped me off, he texted and called me acting perfectly normal, as if nothing happened. I'm afraid to bring it up because I don't want all of that to happen again. I love him so much, but I'm not sure if he feels the same way. When we first got together, he was so in love with me, and everyone could see it. Did he lose his feelings? What is going on? This boy is troubled. He used to be a player and has commitment and abandonment issues. I'm pretty sure he's depressed. This situation is tearing me apart, but I just can't leave. Should I give up on him? Is he a lost cause? Does he still love me? I've given him everything, and it's draining to hear these words. It feels like a stab in the heart every time. I realize how much this is hurting me, but I love him too much to leave. I want to stay and help him through all of this. But what if everything he says is true? What if he genuinely means it? What if we're the reason for all of this? I know it's horrible of me to say this, but he is truly messed up. But he's also the kindest and most loving person sometimes. It's like 1 second he's this amazing guy who's so in love with me, and the next second it's like he hates me. I promised him I would never leave him. What do I do? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Thing is, I truly am so attached to him and I love him so much. So I just always wonder, what if I leave and there's still potential of him getting better? I realize that I shouldn't put up with this treatment. But what if one day he stops? I realize how messed up this is. But the way I think of it is, if I leave, I'll put myself in a lot of heartbreak and misery. So what if I just keep taking it for a little while and he'll get better? I know that leaving is better for me. I just can't get myself to do it. Comment 2. I've spoken to him about his behavior so many times, which is the reason behind 90% of our fights. I just don't want to bring it up now because I'm so exhausted from him saying the same hurtful words. I just want to enjoy him being like his old self. Now for the update. Thanks for all the comments and advice on my last post. Things have only gotten more complicated since then. So, after that whole mess, you'd think I'd have learned my lesson, right? Wrong. I made a big mistake. I went through his phone. I know, it's a breach of trust, but my gut was telling me something was off. And guess what? I found texts with another girl. Not just any girl, but his ex. The one he always told me not to worry about. They were planning to meet up just as friends. I confronted him and he blew up, saying I had no right to invade his privacy and that nothing was going on. He stormed out and I was left feeling like the villain. But then he came back later that night, all apologies and tears, saying he was just scared of how serious we were getting and that he needed a friend to talk to. He promised it wouldn't happen again. I wanted to believe him so badly that I let it slide. Big mistake number 2. The next week, my best friend saw them together at a coffee shop, cozy as can be. When I asked him about it, he lied straight to my face. Said he was alone all day. I didn't push it because I didn't want another fight. I felt so ashamed for trusting him again. And I didn't want anyone to know I'd been fooled. But then, as if that wasn't enough, his sister called me. She never calls me. She was crying, saying she didn't know who else to turn to. Turns out, my boyfriend had gotten into a huge fight with their parents, and now he was missing. No one knew where he was. His sister thought maybe he'd come to me. He hadn't, but I couldn't just sit there. I went out looking for him, driving around to all the places I thought he might be. I found him eventually at the park where we had our first date. He was just sitting there, staring at nothing. He looked so lost. I didn't even want to be mad anymore. I just wanted to help him. We talked for hours, and he opened up about how he's been feeling trapped by everything, not just our relationship. He said he needed space to figure himself out. I told him I'd give him all the space he needed. But then, not even 2 days later, he was back to saying he couldn't live without me. It was like nothing had ever happened. We went back to normal, or at least our version of normal. I didn't bring up the texts or the lies because I was just relieved he was okay. And now, here we are, 2 weeks later. He's been more attentive, and things seem better, but I can't shake the feeling that it's all just temporary, that he's going to flip again and I'll be left picking up the pieces. But I can't leave. I made a promise, and I want to be there for him, even if it means putting myself second. I'm not sure what the future holds for us. I love him, but it's like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm trying to be hopeful, but it's hard. Thanks for reading. My boyfriend's anger issues and ex-girlfriend drama push me to the edge. So I leave him to sort out his mess and focus on my own healing. Hello, I hope this is the right subreddit for this. I've been dating my boyfriend for 8 months. Throughout our relationship, things have been pretty great, no major arguments, and we can communicate pretty effectively most times actual issues arise. I am very in love with him, and so is he with me. The problem is that when we do have arguments, they are incredibly intense. For context, I struggle with borderline personality disorder, BPD, and have known I suffer from it for 2 years. I've worked a lot on myself, and while it's not fully under control, it is mostly an internal struggle that does not affect the people around me. However, I still have clear emotional reactions to most conflicts. Crying. My boyfriend has unnamed issues. He has very angry outbursts, cannot contain his negative emotions, is very, very hot and cold, and can be very impulsive. Of course, most times he is very considerate and has been of great help when I struggle mentally. I've done the same for him to the best of my ability, but occasionally he will react angrily to my struggles, i.e., me crying during a minor argument, and that will cause it to escalate. Sometimes he misinterprets what I say and immediately goes off the rails, usually pushing whatever I said to an extreme, and it can take a while to calm him down and explain what my intent was. He's very apologetic for his angry outbursts, but is completely against therapy and doesn't seem to have a plan to better his reactions in any way, even if he knows the fear it causes in me. He will mostly get mad and then calm down and try to move on as fast as possible without really talking about it. In general, if I try to bring a solution, I am met with complete rejection. So I've stopped proposing them to avoid additional conflict. It is really putting a weight on me in my daily life. I'm scared to set him off by saying the wrong thing, and I know that if one thing goes wrong in his routine, his anger could fall back on me. His home life is very hard, and witnessing it firsthand, I can tell childhood trauma has to do with the way he is. I don't know how to go from here. I can't keep going like this. Is there hope for it to get better? Is this kind of stress I'm experiencing unjustified? How can I help him? Can I even help him? At what point am I taking on too much responsibility? I really do not want to leave him, as the good moments, for now, truly outweigh the bad, both in frequency and in intensity, but I am scared. Thank you if you have any advice. I would really love to know the input of someone who has experience in this type of relationship. Now, for a few comments before the update. He's very apologetic about his angry outbursts, but is completely against therapy, and doesn't seem to have a plan to improve his reactions in any way, even if he knows the fear it causes me. It's not good to be fearful of your partner in a relationship, and if he isn't willing to put forth the effort needed to manage his anger problems, anger management therapy, then he is just not someone that you should build a relationship with. Honestly, even if he did want to get help, it would probably still be wise to break up. This is something that will take him years to handle, and he will do a lot of damage along the way. It's not fair to you to feel like you have to walk on eggshells around him. This is not something that you can fix for him. All you can do is set boundaries and protect yourself. OP, leave. You're scared and walking on eggshells. That's not how a healthy relationship works. You shouldn't fear your boyfriend's outbursts. You should feel safe and happy with him, but you don't. And it takes a toll on your already fragile mental health. He doesn't want to go to therapy and be a better and safer partner for you. Is that what you want? Years of fear? You deserve someone stable, kind, who will make you feel safe and loved. Go to your parents or to a friend's and tell him it's over. Make sure you're safe before telling him that you're leaving. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking around for more of my story. So, things took a turn for the worse. My boyfriend's ex showed up out of nowhere. She was all tears and drama, claiming she was still in love with him. It was like a bad TV show, but there I was, in the middle of it. He told her it was over long ago, but she wouldn't have it. She started spreading rumors about me, saying I was the reason they broke up. It was a mess. Then, my boyfriend lost his job. He didn't tell me right away, but I knew something was off. He was more on edge than usual, snapping over the smallest things. When he finally confessed, it was like a dam broke inside him. He was so ashamed and I felt for him, but it also meant his anger issues got worse. We were both struggling, and it felt like we were sinking. One night we had a huge fight. He accused me of not being supportive enough, and I just lost it. I was tired of walking on eggshells, tired of the drama. I told him maybe we should take a break, and he stormed out. I thought he'd come back, but he didn't. Not that night. The next day, I found out he'd been in a bar fight. He was arrested, and suddenly, all his past mistakes were out in the open. Turns out, he had a record I didn't know about. Fights, unpaid fines, a whole history of anger he'd never mentioned. I was floored. How could I not have known? How could he have hidden all this? I went to bail him out, and that's when I saw the look in his eyes. It was like he finally realized he couldn't run from his past. He broke down, apologizing for everything, but it was too late. His ex, the job loss, the arrest, it was all too much. I realized I couldn't save him from himself. I decided to end things. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I knew it was right. He begged me to reconsider, but I couldn't. I needed to take care of myself, and he needed to face his own demons. After we broke up, things got quiet for a while. But then, his ex reached out to me. She was pregnant, and she said it was his. I didn't know what to believe. She had lied before, but this was big. I told him, and he was in shock. He didn't know if the baby was his, but he said he'd take responsibility if it was. It was a side of him I hadn't seen before, and it made me wonder if I'd made a mistake. But then, the truth came out. The baby wasn't his. She had lied to try and get him back. It was a twisted game to her, and we were all caught up in it. He was relieved, but also angry. He realized how much he had lost because of her lies and his own mistakes. Now he's trying to put his life back together. He's going to therapy, finally dealing with his anger and his past. He's got a new job, and he's staying out of trouble. As for me, I'm healing too. It's not easy, but I'm getting there. I've learned a lot about myself and what I can handle. I guess sometimes life has to fall apart to come back together in a better way. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.